it is just simply a last, best, and final, which means the union doesn't agree with it. It's just what the company says that's the best they can do. Sean has the authority to put us out on strike, and it wouldn't even go to vote.
The facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the members' best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
What's going on, everybody? So today I have Greg Kerwood out of Local 25 in Boston and Dan Arlen out of Local 404 in Western Massachusetts. And we're going to be covering basically myths and rumors. We've covered this once before in the past, but as we edge closer to the deadline of this contract, we're seeing it pop up way more and more. And we're here to debunk a lot of those myths and rumors we've been seeing. So, Greg, I'm going to throw you the first one. UPS has the funds to outlast us, and they are going to replace us.
Yeah, well, technically, UPS obviously has way more money than we do, but it's really not that simple. They would be losing over $1 billion a week during a strike. They have shareholders that they have to answer to. And so they can't just turn around and say, listen, we're going to blow $3, $4, $5 billion and try to outlast the Teamsters and see what happens. They have a customer base that will not tolerate going that long without service. Really the burden of the strike is going to be on them, not really as much on us. And so there's really no way they can outlast us. And certainly the idea that they can replace us is just absurd. You're talking about 340,000 Teamsters. As much as they seem to think that we're unskilled and are replaceable, we all know that we're not. If anyone's ever seen a supervisor try to work, they know that to be the case. So there's no way they can replace us. And without replacing us, they'd have to be completely shut down for weeks and weeks to break us. And it's just not going to happen.
So the other thing we're seeing a lot right now is that people are saying Sean O'Brien is backpedaling when he says that we're going to be working after July 31st if we have a tentative agreement. What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
Well, first, I want to make sure that people understand the two definitions. There's the last, best, and final, and then there's tentative agreements. And if all of a sudden in the Cinderella hour, 11 o'clock at night on July 31st, they come to a tentative agreement on the contract, that means both sides agree to that. And we would look like real jerks going out on strike, especially if we end up approving those tentative agreements. If Sean and them get to that far and it is just simply a last, best, and final, which means the union doesn't agree with it, it's just what the company says that's the best they can do. Sean has the authority to put us out on strike, and it wouldn't even go to vote. But if there is a tentative agreement, then we have to, and there's legal ramifications for it also, that it'll take about 3.5 weeks to have a voting process. So my understanding is that we would postpone and extend the contract for that period of time. And if we approve it, we continue on as usual business. And if we vote it down, my understanding is that we go on strike the next day.
All right. So another one we see all the freaking time right now is that if we go on strike, the government is going to push us back to work. What do you think about that, Greg?
Well, we've covered this a few times already. I think this persists simply because of the railroad situation from last year. Once again, railroad workers are under a different set of laws. Congress, under the Railway Labor Act, has the authority to impose a contract upon them, whether they like it or not. We are not under that law. We are under the National Labor Relations Act. Congress has no such authority. Under Taft-Hartley, the president can seek an injunction to have us go back to work while negotiations continue. That requires a certain burden of proof on his part, would be dramatically unpopular with the general public to do so. And really, in the end, injunctions can be ignored. And so I think Sean alluded to this a little bit the other day. If we have to take this company on and we're on the street, there's no one that's going to stop us from doing it.
I believe he famously said, we would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. So I think that's something he would ignore, even if it was brought down on us.
So the other rumor that goes around that if we go on strike, half of the members are going to be laid off when we come back.
It really comes down to volume. If as we inch closer to a looming strike, there's a chance that customers could get antsy and try to jump ship. But when we come back, I mean, at first you're restarting an entire generator, and it doesn't happen in a split second. The plane's got to get realigned. The trailer's got to get moved from one destination to another. So there could be some lag, and there will be some packages still in the system that we need to get rid of. But the volume could come right back, or it could be delayed a little bit. But worst case scenario, there might be some temporary layoffs, but definitely nothing significant. And with no job loss, everyone will get their job back, especially where colleges go back in session in September, followed by peak starts coming around. It's just not something that, even if it happens, would be long-lived anyway. So I wouldn't be too concerned with that. And especially where it would be under a layoff situation, there's a very good opportunity that most cases people could collect unemployment for the short period of time that they were out.
And then there's the other one that we see all the time that, Greg, if you go on strike and you come back to work, you're going to end up being fired. What do you have to say about that?
Right. So there's two different types of strikes. There's one that's purely financial or pay-based or arguing over money. In that instance, the company does have a right to hire replacement workers, permanent replacement workers, and they don't have to give you your job back. That is not a type of strike that we or usually any other union has because of the way the law is written. What we have is what's called an unfair labor practice strike. That's why whenever you see people on strike, you will always see 2 or 3 or 4 people carrying a sign that says, company X is unfair, right? Because once you decide and put forth that you are striking over an unfair labor practice, then you are protected by law. The company cannot hire permanent replacement workers, and they have to give you your job back when the job is over. So there's absolutely no danger of people being fired because they go on strike.
And one of my favorite ones, I'm going to throw this to you, Dan. The contract has already been done. This is just all ploy to try to... No laughing, I'm being serious. This is all ploy for big man, Big Brown, to try to take over the world. What do you have to think about that?
If we were still in the Hoffa years, I would agree with you. He was very contentious and sold out, and we know that. But we're talking about Sean O'Brien, who, some people fault him for working for Hoffa for all those years. But, like I tell people, I said, first of all, when you're coming up in the ranks of the Teamsters, you either do what your boss says or you're not in the ranks of the Teamsters. And, a good sign of that was in 2018 when Sean and Fred started to get a little rough with the company. Hoffa fired him because that he wasn't following Hoffa's orders. And for Sean to link up with all the other union, Sarah Nelson and all the other union leaders and Bernie Sanders, and put on all these theatrics and go on all the media stations, giving interviews to CNBC, ABC, everyone out there, how foolish would he be to do that if he already had an agreement with the company? Not to mention the fact that there is zero chance that if they have an agreement that Carol Toomey and the company are going to allow Sean just to go around bashing the company for the last 2.5 weeks, if they already have an agreement. I assure you, they would call him out and be like, I don't know what he's talking about. We have an agreement. And so there's no way that this is made up or that there's already an agreement in place. That is preposterous and is 100% being fed by the company. There's zero chance that's true.
I would have to agree with you, especially with all those people in the room and negotiations to get everybody on the same page with this. I'm sorry, guys. I know that there's some people out there that really believe this, but I assure you, this is not a thing. All right.
I mean, the Teamsters are not a cult, right? Like, there's no way that he can get all those people, like you just said, to fall in line. And again, across the room, there's zero chance the company's not going to spill the beans if they already had some behind the scenes deal and he's out there making the media tour.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So, but hey, keep the rumors coming. It makes for more content for me. So thank you so much.
And I want to say something real quick because on my last show I covered some rumors, but I also fell into my own trap. And a viewer called me out on it, and he was absolutely right. I talked about how we hadn't heard anything about PVDs, and how I had heard a rumor that there was a chance that PVDs might stay as long as they offered it to the part-timers first. And then I went on to say how rumors are going to ruin the union. And, I did clarify when I said that it was in fact a rumor and don't believe anything till you see it in writing. But we all fall into the trap. We all want the information. We're all looking for the information. We all got to be very careful about what we see and hear and what we push forward without actually knowing it to be 100% true.
All right. So if you haven't done so already, follow Dan on the Bi-Weekly Grievance Show. It's on YouTube. I'll link it down below. If you haven't done so already, join Greg Kerwood's UPS contract group. Be sure to break the rules and then get kicked out of the group and then create a fake profile and then message all of his friends on his friends list and harass everybody. That is the way to do it. Anyways, we do shout outs. Greg, I'm sorry. You're not going to get a shout out tonight. You get one tomorrow night. All right. But Dan, you get a shout out. Who do you want to shout out?
I want to shout out the part-timers who, Matt Cavagrati, our friend Jess Lee, Jose out in California. I mean, they have worked relentlessly to bring their issues to the front. And we finally made some headroom with Article 40, or it appears that we made some headroom with Article 40. And that's to a couple of years of Matt Cavagrati really pushing that and starting a movement. And, we have some rock stars, and the part-timers are waking up, and they're going to finally get their due in this contract. And if they don't, they control it. So that's my shout out is to all the part-timers that are standing up for themselves and paying attention to this contract and doing their part. Absolutely 100%.
Check out tomorrow's episode. We upload every Sunday. Love you guys. See you next time.